In early August 2005, a shocking event took place in Fortaleza, a city in northeastern Brazil. A group of thieves executed one of the largest and most complex bank robberies in history. Without firing a single shot and leaving barely any trace, they managed to steal more than 160 million Brazilian reais, around $70 million at the time, from the Banco Central vault. How did they pull off such a heist? This is the story of genius and audacity that remains one of the most intriguing and sophisticated bank robberies ever committed. The thieves began their preparations as early as the beginning of 2005. Every detail was meticulously planned. The mastermind behind the heist was believed to be a man named Antonio Jacinto Leda da Silva, a criminal genius and the alleged leader of the operation. Leda da Silva had a reputation for organizing complex crimes that required a high level of planning. Rather than simply storming the bank with masks and guns, he and his crew decided to tunnel directly into the vault. To carry out their plan, the gang rented a building just a few blocks from the bank. They established a fake construction company and used it as a cover for their activities. For months, the thieves dug a tunnel beneath the city streets. This was a highly professional operation. The tunnel stretched 78 meters and was equipped with lighting, ventilation, and support beams to prevent collapse. It was essentially a fully engineered underground passage which served as their main route into the bank's vault. For months, the gang worked carefully and quietly. Under the guise of doing repairs, landscaping, and interior work, they dug the tunnel daily without arousing suspicion from local residents or the police. Using advanced engineering techniques, including laser equipment to precisely map their underground route, the team worked with a high degree of professionalism. The gang was made up of specialists in various fields: builders, engineers, plumbers, and electricians. Everyone had a well-defined role in the plan. No one could have guessed that one of the largest heists in history was taking shape right beneath their feet. Interestingly, the gang invested a huge amount of money in the operation. It's estimated that the construction of the tunnel alone cost them around $1 million. It was a bold risk, but one they believed would pay off. On the night of August 6, 2005, the criminals put their plan into action. The thieves broke into the bank through the tunnel. They knew the security system was designed to protect against armed attacks, but it didn't account for a threat from underground. The criminals calmly worked for several hours, opening vaults and loading cash into prepared containers. They stole more than 3 tons of cash, mostly unmarked bills, which had no serial numbers and couldn't be traced. What's fascinating is that the thieves didn't take all the money. They left some cash behind to avoid slowing themselves down. The gang worked quickly but methodically, ensuring they didn't leave any evidence at the crime scene. Their tunnel was so well planned that it could be destroyed after use, further complicating the search for clues. On the morning of Monday, August 8th, bank employees discovered a massive shortage of cash. When the police and investigators arrived, they were stunned. How could a group of criminals bypass all the security systems? Why had no one noticed anything unusual over the past few months? It turned out the criminals had used a tunnel, but finding the culprits was more difficult than anyone could imagine. Initially, the police had no suspects. There were no fingerprints, DNA, or other physical evidence at the scene. The tunnel was almost completely destroyed after the heist. It was as if the criminals had vanished without a trace. But the police began monitoring suspicious cash transactions in the region. It seemed like the thieves had disappeared along with the money, but a few months later, the first leads started to emerge. One of the stolen bills turned up in a small transaction in a neighboring town. This was the first clue that led investigators to the gang. The police launched a large-scale investigation, tracking suspicious transactions, and gradually, the pieces of the puzzle started to fall into place. Many of the gang members began spending the money on luxury cars, real estate, and other expensive purchases. This drew the attention of law enforcement. Over time, the police were able to arrest dozens of people involved in the heist. But the biggest breakthrough came when one of the gang leaders, Marcos Campos, was arrested while vacationing at a resort in South America. In the months following the start of the investigation, around 30 people were arrested. Many of them were professional criminals with long criminal records. Among those arrested were several who had been directly involved in digging the tunnel. However, a large portion of the money was never recovered. The police also uncovered that part of the gang was connected to major drug cartels. It was believed that some of the stolen money had been handed over to these criminal organizations and disappeared for good. Several gang members were killed after their arrests, further fueling suspicions of ties to organized crime. Despite many arrests and some of the stolen money being recovered, most of the cash remains missing. Estimates suggest that out of the 160 million reais stolen, only about 20 million were ever found. The rest of the money has either been hidden or already spent. This case became one of the most high-profile in Brazil's history and raised serious questions about the effectiveness of law enforcement and the security of the banking system. Although many gang members were brought to justice, the true mastermind behind the operation remains unknown. Who was the real organizer of this heist? How did the gang manage to evade justice for so long? The Banco Central robbery in Fortaleza wasn't just another headline-grabbing crime. It became a true criminal legend. It demonstrated that even the most secure systems could be bypassed if the planning was meticulous and precise. The criminals operated with a level of professionalism that astounded investigators, and despite many arrests, the bulk of the stolen fortune remains at large. This case forever changed how people perceive bank heists. It showed that with enough patience, resources, and expertise, even the most fortified financial institutions could be breached. While the criminals eventually paid the price for their audacity, the mysterious nature of the robbery and the massive missing sum continue to fuel speculation, making it one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in modern crime history.